What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Own the Hunt. We are here today to talk about the Guide Thermal TU651LRF. Stick around. So some of you may be here going, who the heck is Guide Thermal? Guide Thermal is a new company. Well, not new. They've been around a long time, but they're new to the game in that they're producing their own thermal optics finally. They've come to market with quite a gamut of thermal optics, scopes and monoculars. And I gotta tell you guys, these things are pretty impressive. And what's more impressive is the price point. This thing is a $3,500 scope, you guys. It came to market a lot more expensive than that. It was around the $4,200, $4,300 price point. But the market's changing, and so are prices. And so Guide has, as of I believe August 10th, I don't know when you'll be seeing this video, but 2024 August 10th, dropped their pricing on this scope to $3,500. And so that's going to sound like some crazy value the longer I talk about this scope as far as specs go. Stick around, guys. You aren't going to want to miss this. Before we get started, though, I want to talk about Logan over at Fall River Shooters. Logan has signed up to be a dealer for Guide Thermal. These scopes are now available at fallrivershooters.com. Fall River Shooters on Facebook. Hit him up. He's got a phone number. I'll drop it down below. Definitely hit up Logan. Let him earn your business. Wonderful, wonderful person. Has helped me a ton with the channel and is extremely knowledgeable about all thermal products. All right, let's get this review going. So I'm actually really excited about this one, guys. Guide reached out to me, said, hey, we want to know if you're interested in testing one of our thermal scopes. I said, yeah, let me take a look at them. Pretty apprehensive sometimes about reviewing scopes and thermal optics that I've never really heard of and don't know much about, right? So you've got your big three out there: Pulsar, iRay, AGM. Those are kind of your big three. Obviously, you can't dismiss Envision, a US based company, as well as I would say Rix is joining the market, and they are, you know, small, but people are starting to hear about them a lot. So in comes Guide. You guys, this company's been around a long time. They've been making thermal optics and being what's called an OEM, or an original equipment manufacturer, for several other more known thermal optics brands on the market. But they decided to come out with their own thermals, like I mentioned, and man, they have not disappointed. I did some research before I told them, yeah, go ahead, let me test this scope. And what I found was pretty impressive. So I said, you know what, I'm interested. Send me one of these scopes. And so what they did is they sent me their TU651LRF. You guys, this thing is a pretty awesome scope, very, very capable scope. And so let's get into some of the specs on this thing. I already talked about price, but this has a 2.36 base magnification. Some of you may say, well, that's kind of low, and some of you may say that's a little higher than I would like. Here's what I have to say about that. Looking through the scope, it does a phenomenal job at that range, at that base mag. It's a kind of a pretty sweet spot. I'd say 2.5 is the almost the perfect area to where you can really cater to your hog hunters and your coyote hunters without too much, you know, I guess you're not giving up too much on either side, right? So this is a 2.36, a little on the lower side than what I prefer. I really prefer a 3x base mag scope as a dedicated coyote hunter. We do not have hogs here in Maine, but the 2.36 does really well. I took it out hunting, was able to kill a couple coyotes with it, and was able to ID deer and other animals at various ranges. And I gotta say, it was really, really easy to do. So even though it's a slightly lower base mag, no issues, really, no issues. So hog hunters gonna love this scope at 2.36. It's gonna be awesome for you guys. And then coyote hunters, you're not giving up much to step down to that 2.36. So don't feel like it's the wrong scope for you. It could be, but I don't think the base mag is what would rule it out necessarily. So next feature or spec on this scope is it's got a sub 30 millikelvin sensor. So certainly not the most sensitive sensor on the market. Those would be like somewhere around the sub 20 millikelvin, some are even in the sub 18 millikelvin range. This is a sub 30 millikelvin sensor. What that means, as I've talked about numerous times on the channel, is the scope's sensitivity, its ability to differentiate between different heat or temperature variances. And so this has a sub 30, very respective in my opinion, and it's done really well in high humidity. I took it out with very high humidity and had no issues with it. So it's done really well. Image obviously does degrade as the humidity rises, but the scope handled it pretty well. It's certainly not, you know, going to be crisp and clear like it is on clear nights, but let me tell you, when this thing is out on a good crisp clear night, whew, the scope, the image is great. Very, very good. So that brings me into, this is a 640 by 480 resolution scope. So it's, you know, it's considered basically the top of the line. You know, there's a few scopes out there that are toting higher resolutions, but 640 really is about as good as it gets. So really, really good job there. It has a 12 micron pixel pitch sensor. It's not going to mean a whole lot to a lot of you guys, but basically that's, you know, it's kind of where we're at today in the industry. 12 microns pretty much a standard. So detection range of 2,800 yards. Very, very realistic. I took this out and I had no problem seeing, I would say, you know, 1,500, 2,000 yards. Yeah, you're not going to ID at those ranges, but you definitely can detect heat. ID range on this, I would say comfortably 500 yards to ID something between the difference between a deer and a coyote. That's in pretty good conditions. In poor conditions, I'd say, you know, step down a little bit, you know, maybe 300-400 yards for ID, probably closer to 400. It's a very good scope and it has a lot of capability. So I'd say right around that 400 yard ID range. And then you guys are probably wondering what this giant bump is on top of the scope. That is a laser rangefinder. So this scope has a built-in laser rangefinder at $3,500, you guys. 640, 12 micron, sub 30 millikelvin with a built-in laser rangefinder. Pretty impressive. There's some other cool features I'm going to touch on in a minute here, but just keep that in mind. I mean, this thing is super feature rich for the price. So built-in laser rangefinder with a laser detection range or effective range of around 1,000 meters, give or take, depending on, you know, obviously weather, things like that, but right around 1,000 meters. So that's really respectable. I think pretty much everything on the market is anywhere between 800 to 1,200. So right there in the middle, nicely done. Scope comes with 2 batteries, which is really awesome. They are proprietary batteries. You guys know I'm not a huge fan of proprietary batteries, but these are nicely done. Very, very reminiscent and similar to Pulsar's APS-2 and APS-3 batteries. Very, very nice. They do go in the side of the scope, and I'll show you guys that in just a second. But these are very nice batteries, and you'll notice it comes with a dual bay charger. So you do got to line these batteries up in this charger so that they'll click in, but that comes with the dual bay charger. Very nicely done. USB Type-C charging with lights to indicate battery charge status. So awesome job. The fact that they give you 2 of those is huge. I don't know what they cost if you had to get them individually. I think they're probably somewhere around the $50 mark if I had to guess. I don't believe they're any more than that. So hit up a dealer if you needed additional batteries, they could hook you up. Scope comes with its own set of 30mm rings. They are not quick disconnect. They are screw on, kind of cheesy, but they work. I used them, I ran them. The scope held 0. In fact, I took the scope off and put it back on and tried to tighten these to the same torque spec, and it held 0 as well. So while it's not quick disconnect, it does come off easy, and it did hold 0 for me. The mounts didn't seem to shift. I didn't seem to have any problems, so no issues there. I prefer one-piece mounts, but hey, they include the scope rings. That is a plus. So going over the physicality of the scope, on the front you got a nice flip out lens cover. I do wish it could fold all the way back against itself, but it doesn't. Not huge points, but it's something I like to see. It does snap in nice. It's not going to pop off like, you know, some other scope lens covers on the market. It does a good job. This is your front focal ring on front. It is a little stiff. That is probably one of my biggest cons on this scope, is this front focal ring is a little stiff. Does a great job. You can easily get onto it. It's just that when it's on your rifle, depending on the height of your mounts, you can't quite necessarily get a good full purchase on this, and so it gets harder to turn. So you kind of end up doing it with your fingertips, and it does turn a little hard. It's a little stiff. I'd rather it be stiff though than too loose and be able to come out of focus on its own or things like that. Up top, as I mentioned, this is the laser rangefinder. It does protrude a little bit it. It's a little bit higher. I did bring my Pulsar scope in to show you guys the similarities. Obviously these scopes are strikingly similar, but the Pulsar's thermal laser rangefinder sticks up pretty high as well, and so I just wanted to show you that. It's very comparable, you know, slightly different design, but very comparable. So moving down the scope, you've got this kind of turret design here. Up top you have a push button for your menu system. Just a simple single press is going to get you a sub menu, or your base menu, and then a long press is going to get you your big main menu with all your features and functions. This dial up top will turn and show you your different color palettes. It's got white hot, black hot, red hot, green. And it's got quite a few different color palettes. My favorite on it was white hot. On this side, this is your battery door. Screw this off, put a battery in, screw it back on. There is no retention strap or string for this cover. Not a big deal. Pulsar doesn't do that on theirs either. I think it's okay. It's a small enough cover you can hold on to it while you put your battery in. I don't think you're gonna run the risk of losing it. I should also mention, while we're talking about batteries, this does have an internal battery as well, just like the Pulsar thermions. So you know, you get the runtime of these plus the runtime of the internal battery system. You're gonna be all set for a whole long night of hunting. No problems at all. Easily 10 hours of runtime. Over here is your zoom wheel. On this side, you can press and click on this button on the outside. That's going to give you like long steps, or basically double your magnification each press. And then on this side, or this wheel, you can scroll it in and scroll it out, and it does a really nice job. One of my favorite features about this scope is how smooth that wheel is and how nice it is to interact with, to zoom in and out. On the back here, on the rear diopter area, you've got your camera button. You can either take photos or with a short press or a long press to start video recording. This scope does not have an onboard microphone, you guys. You have to use the app if you want to record audio. So I'll talk about that in just a bit, but just know that this scope does not have an onboard microphone. Behind that is your power button. This power button works really nice. It's a quick press. You can turn the scope on by holding it, and then a quick press will nuke the scope or calibrate it if your image starts to get a little grainy as you're out in the field. On the side here, this is kind of neat. This is one of the features I have not yet seen on a thermal scope, at least that I've reviewed. This might be a first for a thermal scope, is a onboard micro HDMI or mini HDMI, I can't remember the proper term, but you could essentially, with a cord they include in the box, plug that HDMI into this and then plug that into an external display, monitor, a TV, whatever, and see exactly what's going on with this scope. You're probably wondering, why the heck would I want to do that? That could be really useful if you were trying to sit on a bait and you were in a shack or something and you wanted to be able to monitor your scope and just have it looking at the same target the whole time, and you just wanted to sit back, have a few laughs with your buddies, and watch to see if a coyote came in and hit your bait or something like that. That would be pretty neat. Also under that door is a USB-C charge port that will charge both the internal battery as well as the battery that you put in the side door. Then on the back, guys, you kind of have your standard rear diopter focus. So obviously this is how you focus the menu system, all the text on the display. That's what you use this for. And then your front focus is how you focus in the actual image that the scope is pulling in for you. So two different focuses. They work differently than each other, but you got to have them both working in tandem to get the best quality and the best experience out of the scope. So that's pretty much it on the scope itself. I do want to mention, guys, build quality, right? So build quality is really a huge deal for me. As far as I'm concerned, build quality doesn't get much better at all than these Pulsar thermions. So if I were to compare build quality to the Pulsar thermion with this scope, I would give this Pulsar probably a solid 9.5. I mean, this thing is extremely well built, feels extremely premium. Everything on it, it's a home run as far as I'm concerned. So if I'm gonna stack it up against that scope and give this a score for build quality, I'm gonna give this somewhere around a 7.5. Not that it feels cheesy, not that it feels like it would break, but it definitely has some shortcomings as far as like materials used, things like that. Do I think it's going to have any issues in the field? Do I think it's going to break on you? Things like that? No, not at all. These rear buttons, they feel a little bit squishy. So those touch points, I talk about touch points from time to time on the channel, and these don't feel quite as premium as, say, Pulsar's buttons. They don't feel not premium. They feel great. They're just definitely a different style of button is being used under that rubber. I don't think the rubber is going to deteriorate or have any issues, but just know that, you know. And then everything else, you know, seems pretty standard, seems pretty good. It is a metal tube. I don't know if it's painted or like powder coated or what, but everything seems okay. I think if you were to scratch this on something, it probably would scratch off the finish, things like that, but nothing to really be concerned about as far as like longevity or durability of the scope. So when I opened the box, I was pretty impressed with this thing. Presentation, as you can see, comes in this really nice box, really nicely done. Comes with this very nice travel case. I had never used one until probably, I don't know, a month or a month and a half ago. I went on a camping trip and took all of my gear with me because I was going to meet up with some friends, and I wasn't able to fit my rifle into the rifle bag I had with my thermal on it. So I detached my thermal and I actually used a travel case that came with it. So guys, I guess there is a use for them. It's nice to have it when you need it. So guide, nicely done. They include this bag. Let's go ahead and open it up. So in this bag, obviously you get your manual, there's some cables and stuff, different country plugs, things like that. I already took the batteries out. This is that HDMI cable I mentioned in this bag, plus a charge cable for USB-C. Comes with a shoulder strap for the bag. Also comes with a detachable eye cup. I'm not a big fan of these eye cups, you guys. If you follow the channel, you know that. But this eye cup goes on over and just kind of friction fits. It doesn't appear to be magnetic at all, kind of like Pulsar's is. It looks like it just kind of friction fits, but it's on there nice and solid. I would not at all be concerned that it's coming off, and it helps you get a nice purchase on that rear diopter focus ring. So no issues with that, no issues at all with this eye cup. It's on there nice and tight, so nicely done, guide. So guys, that's pretty much it on the scope. You're probably sitting there going, well, should I buy this scope? If you want my honest opinion, I'd say yes. At this price point, with the features you get in this scope, it is extremely hard to beat. The image quality is very good. It is, you know, very feature-rich scope, has contrast brightness settings. You can really dial in the image based on the weather conditions and things like that. The fact that it has a laser rangefinder built in, you don't have to zero it, you don't have to worry about an external battery for it. That is a huge con of mine. I hate external laser rangefinders. I've used multiple now. I've used Rix's, I've used iRays. None of them seem to work amazing. You have to fiddle with them a lot. You got to manage another battery. Just don't like them. So the fact that Guide went with an integrated built-in laser rangefinder, just love that. You just can't go wrong. You know, is it perfect? It's not. The scope is not perfect, but it is a lot of scope for the money. I do want to touch on the app a little bit, guys, because I mentioned the fact that it doesn't have an onboard microphone. I downloaded the app and I gotta tell you guys, the app's called Target IR, if you're wondering. I downloaded it through the Apple iStore. And I gotta tell you, the app is phenomenal. I'm a stickler for apps working and working well. I feel like if you're gonna develop an app and it's gonna pair with your scope, you know, it's gotta work, right? And so I downloaded this app, and for one, I was a little like, why is it not called like Guide Thermal or something like that? But I got past that part of it. It's called Target IR, whatever. But I got into it, I paired it with the scope. I had absolutely no issues at all. I mean, pairing this thing was flawless. It immediately recognized the scope, let me go into like the scope's viewfinder mode. It lets you toggle between taking photos and videos. You can press a red button, hit record. And so what I wanted to tell you guys is that this thing has, the app has native audio recording capabilities, okay? And so in the past, when you've wanted to get audio from a scope that doesn't have a microphone, you've had to do like a screen record through your iPhone, and it's kind of a janky process, and it captures like all of the contents of the screen of your phone. What I really like about what Guide did with their app is when you hit the record button, you only get the recording of the video. You don't get any of the extra stuff around the screen. You don't get, you know, the record button doesn't show up in your video. But moreover, what's even better than that is it uses your phone's microphone to capture audio. And so I took this out hunting and I captured my hunt with that feature, and the audio is some of the best audio I've ever heard on a scope recording because it's using my phone's microphone, which, as you guys know, is extremely good. These microphones on these phones these days is very, very good. So I was really, really impressed with that. You know, I've had zero issues with the app. Getting your video files once you've recorded them, whether you record them from the scope or you record them from within the app, is like, it's the fastest video recovery I've ever had. You don't really have to like download the video. It's kind of just there. You can play it from your phone, and even when you're not connected to the scope anymore, you can still see, you know, the videos as long as you are using your phone to do the recording. If you were using the scope as the recording device, you do have to hit download, and it does have to download the video from the scope. But if you were recording them using the phone through the app, it's instant playback. It's phenomenal. It just works incredibly well. The video quality, like, you know, a lot of scopes, what you see through the eyepiece versus what you download, you know, there's some degradation there. Sometimes the video quality is not as good as what you see in the scope. This is a very, very close representation of what you see in the scope as to what you get in the video. So, you know, very nicely done. I guess I should also mention that this scope has a really, really huge onboard memory. It's like 128, I believe it's 128 gigabytes of onboard storage. That's double any that I've seen on the market. Most of them are 64 gigabytes. So this is double that. And I mean, you can record a lot, hours and hours and hours and hours of footage with not having to delete anything off the scope. So I don't know, man, lot to like about this scope. It's really a good scope. I think Guide's gonna come to market with some heavy hitters, you know, outside of the scope. I think they're gonna continually develop and bring us stuff and listen to consumer feedback. But this is a very, very good scope for the money, you guys. I'm also testing one of their thermal monoculars, and so I'll be coming at you guys with a review of that as well. But so far, I'm really liking what I see from Guide. And one of the most important things I think I should mention is their warranty. They're a industry leading and kind of industry first 10-year warranty on their sensors. So guys, 10 years. You buy this scope today, in 10 years, if this thing has an issue with the thermal sensor, Guide's gonna go good for it. That's pretty huge. You know, I think that's pushing it. You know, from a company standpoint, for me to stand behind something like this, a piece of tech for 10 years, that's pushing it. Guide obviously has found a way to make that make sense to them. That's huge. I mean, a lot of people spend their hard-earned money on these scopes and they want them to last. So anyway, guys, that's kind of it for me. I'm super impressed with this scope. Really, really enjoyed the opportunity to test it, to use it, to hunt with it, and to bring you guys this review. And so I'm gonna shout out Guide. I think this scope's a home run for them. I think it's a great scope, and I definitely think it's worth your money if it checks all the boxes for you. So with that, guys, until next time on Own the Hunt, we'll see you later. From until it picked its head up. One of those is a little buck. That's true. You never know, there could be more. Could be some.